see what kind of delay there is. All right. Live chat. No one yet. I'll possibly change in a minute when this switches over to live. We'll see. If and when that changes over. All right. Oh, what the hell? I'm going to change over now. Okay, now it's changing over. So that's good. I hate doing this. It's monitoring on one device and then actually doing the show on another. Oh, what the hell? All right. Are we caught up? Yeah, it's still delayed. Okay. All right, not as bad a delay at least. Good. There we are. All right. Excellent. I can turn that off, get back to it. Excellent. There we go. Greetings and salutations, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Storyteller's Corner. I'm your host, Joshua T. Culkin-Trubergy, also known as Byron Sidious. Greetings and good morning, K-Babe from YouTube watching. Thank you for joining me this morning here in the Storyteller's Corner. Title of the stream, I'm not sure how long I'll be running today's show. You chase your trends, we'll be making stuff for us. I did not intend to do a show this morning. I was supposed to, thank you very much, Kay. Thank you much. Go ahead and hit the like and we'll see you on later. If you choose to pop back in, then you're more than welcome. But we are mostly talking bookish, kind of nerdlinger kind of things here. And I know that you have a broad swath of options for what to spend your time listening to or watching. And I appreciate you taking the time to stop through and hit the like button. It is much appreciated. I was going to initially have an interview with the brothers Crin this morning over from Substack, but some wires got crossed. I was late to even reaching out to him and contacting him, asking, I'm saying, I'm sorry I'm late. Do we need to reschedule? I haven't heard back from them yet, but we have been trying to coordinate some kind of conversation for me to appear on his sort of bookish chat podcast and conversation piece. But I want to talk a little bit about a topic that has been kind of center stage for folks who are on the bookish end of things, who are involved or interested in the publishing industry and the current market trends, behaviors, and practices throughout all of publishing, whether it be in the standard text publishing, whether it be in comic books. Sarge, dear Sarge, greetings and salutations, brother. Great to have you on. But thanks for joining in as well. I'm glad to see that you enjoyed the tune, the song that the music video rather that I uploaded the other day. That was the result of myself sending off some older poems actually to an old friend of mine from back in the days when I still lived out in Buffalo, New York, and he took the poems and lyrics that I had sent him over the last few years, and he made of them what he did, and sent me the audio files. He's sent me like around 12 or 13 different songs that he's put together, and he's like, hey, slap an image on these, do what you can, and go ahead and upload it to your channel. I'm like, dude, that's pretty awesome. I appreciate that. And that first song that he had put together, that one actually is True to This Land. That's I wrote that tune. I wrote that poem about I want to say 2.5, 3 years ago, and I sent it off to Bill and I said, arrange this however you can, do with it whatever it is you do, and I'll talk to you later. And I haven't heard really back much of anything from Bill for a couple of years. And then last week he hit me with an email. It's like, hey, give a listen to these. I'm going to send you a packet of audio files. There you go. It's stuff that him and his folks have been putting together. But anyway, back to the bookish realm. One of the big conversations that has laser focused a lot of folks who are involved in bookish things, whether it be folks on BookTube, the sort of book chat sub community on YouTube, or Book Talk, which is largely infested with a lot of young adult women who are trying to promote what is barely concealed written smut, and trying to promote all of these books from nothing but female authors, utilizing titillation and, well, sex sells. Let's be frank about it. The vast majority of material that hits bestsellers lists these days for bookstores, it's almost all from this same batch of Sarah J. Maas kind of Laurel K. Hamilton sex-obsessed spinsters who themselves aren't actually women of virtue, extolling the benefits of being a girl boss or being a sexually depraved and hypercharged piece of shit. I'm sorry, it may not be polite, it may not be seen as modern or forward thinking, but I have tried to read some of this material, and all of it is poorly written slop. I have read better short stories and attempts at novelizations from 8th and 9th graders on fanfiction.net that speak to a better capacity for the written word than all of this mass market garbage that has flooded Amazon's Kindle Direct program, that has flooded bookstores like Waterstones and Barnes & Noble. Pardon me. It's atrocious because most of it has no technique. It has no life to it. Yep. I'll hopefully LB can make it in. I appreciate it if he can make it. If he can't, I understand. I appreciate anybody who takes the time to dip in here to the show and spend a little time listening to me rant and ramble and rage about things that they probably don't really care about. But LB, being an author himself, being someone interested and invested in the literary realm, I would hope that if he has the opportunity, he pops in. If he doesn't, perhaps he can watch later on a recast. But none of this is shocking. None of this should surprise anybody. And a number of folks in the kind of BookTube community, most of them also female book reviewers or promoters or female authors themselves in the small or independent press level, have come out talking about the idea, the notion that there is very little available to the average straight male in the reading public for them to latch onto, especially in literary fiction. But there is still a foothold that male readers tend to have, and they still dominate the science fiction and horror genres as a readership. As the paying customer, men in the United States and the UK, because those are the two primary markets that I look at, I pay attention to, the readership is still predominantly male. It is predominantly between the ages of 25 to 50. Young men between the ages of 18 to 24 aren't so much invested in reading as a leisure time activity. And this could be down to cultural markers and generational changes, such as a greater attention placed on entertainment options like television, film, and video games. And I can't complain about the video games too much because I have myself for a long time been an avid gamer. Ever since the days of the Atari 2600 and the 8-bit Famicom, the 8-bit Nintendo Entertainment System, I've been a big time advocate and proponent of video game playing and trying to utilize video games as a form of narrative development and presentation. I'm a big fan of JRPGs, what is referred to as Japanese style role playing games. It's called JRPG because of the systems and the mechanics. That tends to be a subgenre of just the overall RPG landscape, featuring turn-based combat, a team of 3 or 4 characters that you control and issue commands to when you're traveling around the world. But in books, those are the only 2 genres, science fiction and horror, where men are still the predominant readership. In fiction, I'm not talking about nonfiction because that is far and away still dominated by a male reading audience in the United States and the UK. If this is shocking to anybody, it should not be, because reference material, the use of statistics, of data, of historical trends, patterns, it's a reliance on facts and not so much on feelings that men tend to gravitate toward when they want to look up something that will bolster their arguments, their claims, or can challenge them in their perspectives and their thought process. They're going to look for nonfiction material that can either provide them the challenge they need to help adjust and assimilate new information so that they can properly and appropriately adjust their expectations and their thought process, or it'll allow them the chance to say, I thought this already. Here's data, here's evidence, here's historical precedent to prove my case. Thank you. Men will look for conflict and look for contradiction to their own thought patterns in nonfiction material far more often than women will as a reading base. When it comes to fiction, the areas of literary fiction and fantasy, as well as romance, as well as humor, and nowadays apparently, is heavily dominated by a female readership and customer base. Women are approximately 81% of the purchasing customer base in the US and the UK. Men only comprise 19% of the fiction purchasers in the US and the UK. When it comes to borrowers from public libraries, the difference is slightly more balanced, but not really all that much better. It's 72% female and 28% male. So young men are still reading. They're just not reading as much. They're not buying books as frequently as female readers. They're not borrowing books as much as female readers in the fiction area, generally speaking. Only in horror and sci-fi do men still maintain the majority of readership. And in those areas, according to Nielsen Bookscan, it's not by that large a margin. In sci-fi, the purchase and borrowship is averaged out to approximately a 65-35 split between male to female. In horror, however, it is heavily dominated by men. It is 87% male purchasers and borrowers averaged versus 13% female. This is not really too much of a shock to me, as someone who enjoys horror genre fiction as a reader and as an author. The male reader tends to enjoy that sense of dread, that sense of challenge, fear, and the narrow escape of death, and the very real possibility that survival might not happen for everybody involved in the story. Apparently, men are a little bit more willing to engage in that, thinking about the risks involved in a horror story. we're more numb to the idea that shit's going to go bad and it's going to be unpleasant. But again, this should not be shocking. According to Bookwatch, which is a US-based publishing industry watchdog group that's been in operation since 1992, approximately 78% of all literary agents worldwide throughout the entire industry as a whole are female. According to Bookwatch, 67% of all retail bulk buyer agents, these are the folks who are responsible for making the decisions of what books to purchase and put on bookstore shelves, as well as 88% of all acclamation agents for public library systems, be they school or general public, are female. That's a big disparity. And also, according to Bookwatch, worldwide across the top 100 publishers in terms of sales, 86% of editors for the top 100 publishers worldwide are female. So the folks who decide what's going to get put on bookstore shelves or library shelves are mostly women. The folks who accept a manuscript for consideration for publication are female. 86% of the people who are going to actually attempt to change the material of the manuscript as presented and determine whether or not that book continues to be represented and eventually sees publication and distribution into the wider market are female. If you are a male author, the odds that the manuscript that you present to any publisher is going to get picked up, is not going to be completely altered at the editorial level, and is going to be carried by a book publisher, be carried by a bookseller or a public library, your odds are increasingly slim if, and this is a big if, all of the people involved in the long process are willing to give you a chance and aren't just going to say no based on identitarian ideological practices and perspectives. Your odds are increasingly, vanishingly slim. Now, this is not to accuse every woman involved in the publishing industry at every step of the process of being, quote, man-hating shrews or harpies. But given how little there is available on the shelves from male authors, it starts to present a historical trend and behavior. The current marketplace says that most of the people purchasing books are women. So a lot of the books that are presented for sale or for borrowing are going to be aimed at them. That's marketing 101. Understand your audience. Understand who is most likely going to spend their money on your product. There is a logic to that, and I am not going to fault booksellers from following that data. What I am going to ask, however, then is, if you understand that that is the majority of your audience, then at what point do you have a leg to stand on when screaming at men for not purchasing your ideologically captured material? You put your hand into my wallet? How about you offer me something that I give a shit about in the first place? It's not for you. Okay, then you've got no room to bitch when I don't buy it. This has been happening in film and television for years. It's been happening in books at a much slower pace, but now it's caught up to the point where people involved and invested in publishing as a readership, as an audience of purveyors of the art, are finally starting to take notice that, hey, there ain't shit out there for us. Lads, we're basically being told to girly it up and buy into the program, or we're awful people. No. You're not offering me anything that I actually want or have an interest in. So why would I buy your shit? And by the way, most of it is slop. Most of it is shit. Because when I try to read these books, when I borrow them, or when, on the rare occasion, when I will actually buy a book from an author I've never heard of, because I want to give them a chance, because I'm willing to take a chance. If I haven't heard anything about the author or the work, I'll try to find it someplace where I can borrow it first. I'll go to the library. That's how I became familiar with the utter garbage that is Sarah J. Maas. I borrowed one book. I don't even remember the title. I got about 5 or 6 pages in and went, nope, I'm done. This is not worth my time or effort. There is nothing here that makes me give a shit about this character, about her circumstances, about the world building aspects, which are minimal at best, and seem to be a carbon clone of the early works of Charlaine Harris, who is a far superior author. Because I'm sorry, the Southern Belle vampire books, Sookie Stackhouse novels, were actually pretty good for the most part. At least the 8 or 9 of them that I read were well written, with characters who were properly developed, who faced challenges to the environment and to themselves, given the confines of the world building strata as set up by Miss Harris. She is an actually talented fantasy genre author who I would recommend. And the television show that was based on her books, True Blood, took a lot of liberties with the hypersexualization of the characters within those stories. Yes, there were some quote unquote steamy sequences, even in the early Sookie Stackhouse novels, but they didn't devolve into outright smut like the television adaptation did. I get it. HBO was trying to hook in an audience with sexy vampires because that was the big thing at the time, thanks to Stephanie fucking Meyer. And I can't go down that road, or I'll want to blow my fucking brains out. But moving on, per Nielsen Bookscan, the most challenged and or denied or protested titles for inclusion to bookseller shelves or to public library databases in both the United States and the UK from the years spanning 2016 through 2024 have been classified as classics. Now, when I say the most challenged, approximately 72% of the titles challenged for inclusion on bookshelves, be they booksellers or public libraries, from that time span from 2016 to 2024, that 8-year range, were classified as classics. Who, by the way, tend to, by vast majority, have been written by male authors. This is. I'm not trying to say that causation is to blame here, but there seems to be an ongoing trend wherein if a book was written by a man, then it's worthy of being challenged, regardless of its age, and actually, especially if it's a classic. Because if it's something that's been deemed not up to modern expectations of sensibility, ethics, and morality, then it must be automatically bad and shunted and shoved aside. Fuck that. While the classics, I don't think, are deserving of being put up on a pedestal and worshipped, as it were, in the way that they oftentimes are, I don't think you can dismiss them out of hand just because they were written in a prior era. So yeah, the overall trends are not encouraging. That doesn't mean that we should give up. There's plenty of folks over on Substack who I enjoy reading their fiction, and I need to get better about reading their material as it is released so that I can start putting together notes for review. I have reviewed plenty of commercially more available books over the years. And just the other day, I finally did a review on the comic book series Oblivion Song, I gotta upload that video to my Rumble account. I already uploaded it yesterday to my YouTube channel. I've got to get that review video up on Rumble as well. But I have been lax in actually being an active reader and reviewer of small press indie material. I've done a number of indie reviews over the years, but the most recent one was, I think, a couple of years ago. Sarge says, found a new site yesterday on Twitter. Just emailed you a link. It's called World's Wave and might be a viable place someday. Still in early stages right now, but I'll support free speech. Very nice. Astro Sweat, greetings and salutations. Welcome to the show. Good to have you here this morning. And welcome aboard. So yes, there's been on Substack a worrying trend for me, because I do enjoy Substack by and large, but there has been this kind of recent surge of creators and authors. Greetings and hallucinations to you as well. Thanks, Astro. There's been a trend of people popping onto Substack who have been talking about this issue in a very dismissive manner. People popping in and saying, who cares? What does it matter that the market is just doing what the market does and presenting buyers and customers with what they want? Who are you to say that what the people making the purchases, who are you to say that those folks should not be buying the books that they're buying? Well, they're free to do that, but they're killing their capacity for reading comprehension and analysis. And they are dragging down the overall quality of fiction that is available for everybody else to read. This is where the whole notion of voting with your wallet comes in, and why I find it especially egregious and insulting that folks who sit there and say, well, this isn't a problem. Men just need to suck it up and buy the books that are available to them. Why? Why should they have you putting your hand in their wallet and demanding their money in exchange for material that they are not going to identify with, they are not going to enjoy? It's just going to be an ongoing lecture and an attempt to browbeat them into changing their tastes. Fuck all that. Weaver, LB Weaver, greetings and salutations, brother, and welcome to the show. Good to see you here. How am I doing today? Doing okay, just a little frustrated with the state of the publishing industry, as I often am. That's not to say I want to see it burned to the ground, but things need to make a few changes. Because I am tired of beating my head against the wall on this shit. Greetings, Dan. Greetings and salutations, Belgian Dan. Lubricated, medicated YouTuber. Ribbed for her pleasure. And yes, Dan highlights freedom of speech needs to include freedom of opinions. Now, I grant you that there should be room for options and for opposition or for different perspectives in the realm of genre fiction and even in literary fiction. You need to have someone granted the option or the availability to throw something out into the market that is not in line with everything else that's out there. That's how we get the greatest art, is by allowing artists of the written word to indulge in the freedom of expressing a different perspective. But oftentimes what ends up happening, and I have found this has been creeping into, as I was mentioning before, it's been creeping into Substack, is you've got a whole lot of these kind of harridans hopping on there and saying, hey guys, you don't need to write for an exclusively male audience. You need to adjust your material to include or allow for women to enjoy your material as well. Why? Why is it every time that material in entertainment has to be adjusted to cater to a female audience, to cater to the LG, LMNOP, HDTV, HDMI community, the Rainbow Brigade? Why do I have to adjust my material to make it more palatable for that crowd? I don't want to deny them the capacity or ability to read my material and to enjoy it, to be entertained by it. I'm not outright going to be hostile to them, but I'm not going to pander to them either. How is it inclusive or respectful of people with whom I don't share a connection ideologically or genetically? How is it inclusive to them? Go ahead and post there, brother. How is it inclusive or respectful of them to pander to them? That's not respectful. That's trying to say, you know what? I'm going to adjust my material just to try and get a couple of bucks out of your pocket. No. What if the rest of the material that I write makes them feel icky or uncomfortable and they don't want to continue reading it? That is their choice. What if they're not a big fan of fantasy? They don't need to be purchasing my material. They should be granted the option and the choice just as much as anybody else. But I'm not going to pander to them. If the folks, sounds a lot like Catholic school, it kind of is. These folks want to browbeat you, and there's more and more of them popping up on Substack all the time. They want to browbeat everybody who writes for either a neutral audience or for an audience of like-minded persons. I am a primarily fantasy and horror author. Okay? I write material ostensibly for folks who are interested in fantasy and horror. Now, the readership, what do you mean you're no links? Is there something I need to, or is that somebody who's in the chat? Oh, okay, okay. That's Astro Sweat. All right, my apologies. If what I am writing in fantasy or horror does not appeal to someone, that's okay. No skin off my nose. I may not be able to capture their attention, and that's okay. That's going to happen. Better be honest, fucking commies. Yeah, you're damn right. Conversely, there's a lot of folks on Substack who have started in the fiction area producing and promoting a lot of material that is, quote, from the feminist lens. Okay? If feminists want to hop on, glom on, and read that, by all means, they should be free to. They should be free to have their material exist there and be offered up as, hey, here's fiction written from a feminist perspective. Okay, fine. Let that be. That, however, does not mean that you have the expectation or the right to demand that I change my writing style to fit that audience. Fuck them. And fuck you for insisting it. I understand that I am going to burn bridges when I say things like that. For years, I have tried to be very easygoing, very just live and let live, and let it be. Thank you, Astro Sweat. I appreciate that. I have, by and large, tried to just say, you know what? You want to push your shit at me? Fine, go ahead and push it at me. I'm just going to ignore it. I'm not going to pay attention to it. I'm not going to respond. The problem, though, with this particular group of people is that when you tell them, hey, I just want to be left alone, they don't leave you alone. You have to punch back at them and snarl and growl and throw a kick or two or an elbow before they finally get the fucking point. And hey, dickhead, when I said I wasn't interested in your slop, when I said I didn't want to cater to your audience, I meant it. Back the fuck off. And when you do snarl and growl at these people, they say, oh, I'm being attacked. I'm being persecuted. I'm being harassed. Like Alyssa fucking Mercante. Quite frankly, go fuck yourself. I'll find some kerosene. You're free to douse yourself with it and grab a few matches. What you do at that point is between you and God. And I've no interest in it. When you fight back is when they decide, oh, now we have to make sure we can get them unpersoned. Now we have to make sure we can we cut them off from any kind of funding. And this already happens on Substack. You've already got people who are getting their Stripe accounts suspended because of KYC protocol that Stripe implements, the Know Your Customer. I myself cannot get financially backed through Substack because Stripe has my account in a holding pattern because I refuse to answer their KYC questionnaire, their Know Your Customer questionnaire, because a lot of the questions on that questionnaire are none of their fucking business. It makes no difference what my ethnicity is. It makes no difference what activity I am doing on Substack because none of it is illegal. So they can go fuck right off. I'm not answering their questions. I'm not going through their digital struggle session. They can eat the whole of my ass. I will find other ways to get funding if I can or if I have to. Or better yet, I'm not in this for a payday necessarily. There are folks who have attempted to financially support me, like Dear Sarge, by purchasing copies of my books at Lulu and on Amazon, and I deeply appreciate his support in that regard and in that vein. LB Weaver has also made a purchase of some work of mine, and I deeply appreciate that. Dan has read a lot of my material, and I deeply appreciate that. And Dan says, hey, I just want to live my life and relax at the end of the day. Yes. The trouble is, they don't want to let you relax. They don't want to let you just live your life. The people in this subset of wokey fucking fringe idiots who are appearing en masse now on Substack are saying, you will follow our program. You will follow the dictates of our demands and our requirements and suggestions, or we will destroy and bury you. Astro Set was gifted a membership by Dear Sarge. Sarge, I deeply appreciate that, sir. Your support is always appreciated. And you know, you don't have to do that. There's never a need or a requirement or an expectation. There's a lot of stuff. Oh, geez. And LB Weaver gifted a membership by Dear Sarge. Once again, Sergeant, to you and to the Society of what is it? The Society of Fucks, of No Fucks Given, Sick Fucks, the Society of Sick Fucks. I salute you, sir. Yes, Dan, it is frustrating because as much as I would love to make a living off of my writing and off of my fiction material, I don't actually expect that will happen. I am a realist when it comes to that. I will never be a household name by my estimation or expectations. That's okay. I'm still going to tell stories. And, you know, I understand and I accept that. There's a lot of people who I watch and who I follow on YouTube and on Rumble and on X and on Substack who are vastly successful, who have a gigantic audience. And Astro Sweat, the $5 Rumble rant says paying it forward. You are deeply appreciated, Astro Sweat. All of you are, because you're taking the time and spending it here on my little program when, as we all know, Rumble has this ongoing set of programs, starting with Vince, who took over for Dan Bongino when he left his program in order to serve as the assistant FBI director under Kash Patel. That was a massive move. That takes balls. That takes being devoted and committed to your principles. To step away from millions of fans, to step away from a program that is making who knows how much money in order to serve the public. Dan Bongino is a guy to admire for that, if for nothing else. I don't always agree with every one of his takes, but when it came to the guy saying, okay, I've been called on to serve, he fucking did it. That is admirable. That is something to pay homage to, if you can. I can't do anything similar to that. I'm not qualified. But as I was getting around to, part of the reason I still promote my Substack account, even though I can't make money off of it because of Stripe's fuckery, I can still make some kind of money off through PayPal because I finally have an account there again. I wasn't happy about it, but I'll do it. But there's no expectation there. I may never get ahead, as it were. I might not get ahead, as it were, telling stories. But I love telling stories. That's what I've always done. I cover bookish things. I talk about all of this. Look, it may not be much, but if you ask me, this is a beautiful thing. This is also a beautiful thing. All these books, and I've only read about half of them. I still got a bunch I got to get through, man. And then I have to go back to Substack, and I need to start reading the fiction authors who have commented on my material, who have said, Belgian Dan, coming over to Rumble. Thank you, brother. This is a Rumble first show. This is a Rumble first presentation. I need to start uploading the standalone videos more to Rumble than I do to YouTube. Lost my place of thought. There's a surprise. The train of thought has derailed into the fucking mountain. I'm going to provide these stories. Period. They're going to be available for sale in certain places. They're going to be available for free reading at the Storyteller's Corner. Because people deserve to have fiction, be it literary or genre fiction, available to them. And that's not necessarily always going to be something they can afford, because books are, look, nobody needs to buy a copy of Terry Pratchett's Thud. It's a luxury item. It's something to pass the time and engage with thoughtfully, intellectually, entertainmentally, okay, amusingly, just to have a good time with a story. Is Murdoch's book in print or just audio so far? Murdoch. I gotta catch up with LB Weaver and find out what that's all about. But I've been meaning to go back to, like I said, Substack and read some of the fiction authors who have supported me and promoted my work in the 4 years I've been there. I've been really badly negligent in doing my part to help showcase and highlight them and promote their material. The one guy who I mention frequently, Jonathan Delp, the Stomp Rome's stories. They are fantastic reads. They're very entertaining and superbly well written. And I've been meaning to get back to the Black Knight and his Terran Tuesdays material. He writes sci-fi as well as fantasy. I want to put together some videos reviewing their material and promoting their Substack accounts and their stories because they deserve to have a readership as well. Because they are skilled, they are talented storytellers, and they're not in it to just try and earn a buck. You know, not everything has to be commodified. I know that's going to sound a little hippy dippy, and Sarge, by all means, you may beat me over the head for saying this, and I kind of half expect you to. Yes, I am an artist of the written word. That doesn't mean that I demand to get paid for it every time. The effort I put into telling a story, to writing it, editing it, rewriting it, tearing it apart, putting it back together in the proper way it should be presented for an audience, is not always, and not even chiefly, about trying to make a buck off of it. It's because this is a story that I believe deserves to be told. Redonkulous, he's even jumped on my show. He shared his book with LB before it got published, said it was great. Oh, good. I should check that out at some point. Once it becomes available, or if the guy's willing to get a beta reader, I'd be more than happy to jump in on that as well. My point being that, and again, this is not something I delve into all that frequently. I don't talk about my faith or my relationship with God all that much because it feels kind of crass. Like that's not what I'm supposed to do. That's not my wheelhouse. It's not my bailiwick. Okay, I'll leave that to people who are far better skilled and qualified to be preachers, as it were. And I understand that I'm also going to say something that may strike people as either weird or that people will say, well, you're just hearing voices, Josh. It doesn't actually mean anything. Okay. But when I was a younger man and I heard a whisper in my ear, God telling me, you will be a father first. You will be a husband next. The best you can be at both of those. And you will tell stories. That is your job. That is the duty I give you now. I have tried my best in all three of those things to follow that duty. Nowhere in that demand or in that expectation that God set upon my head was I promised a payday. Nowhere in that was I promised a financial living off of it. That is an expectation that I have no right to set upon my Lord. I don't have any right to demand or expect financial rewards from doing this. I do it for the love of the art and because it is my duty. We all have a duty to ourselves, to our maker, to our families and loved ones. And if we are artists, we have a duty to our art. That's part of the reason why I initially wanted to talk about this garbage about chasing trends in the marketplace. Is your duty as a storyteller to chase down a specific demographic and get them to buy your books? No. Your duty is to tell a story. Astro Sweat says it beautifully. Creativity is its own reward. It can be, at least. And many of us who are engaged in the art of the written word and narrative arts have forgotten that entirely. Instead of having people like Bukowski or Harlan Ellison, fire breathers who rampage through life living on the edge of sanity and doing the best they could to maintain whatever throttle grip they had on the steering wheel of life while doing their best to provide thought-provoking, engaging, and quality fiction material for whoever was willing to read it. These guys were, frankly, renegades of the literary scene. And sometimes they fucked up and they said things that they shouldn't have said, given the morals and ethics of the day and expectations placed upon them, but they didn't give a shit because they knew and understood and appreciated their duty. They understood that their obligation was to the art of the written word itself, and not always necessarily to what was going to line their pockets. Now, Harlan Ellison was relatively mercenary. One of my favorite interviews with him was for a series talking about Clive Barker. Actually, it was a mini documentary done by the BBC talking about Clive Barker, and and Harlan Ellison was one of the people they talked to, and they asked about his perspective on Barker. And Ellison said, "Oh, Barker's a great guy. He's tremendously talented, but the guy's a fucking pushover. He lost all kinds of money on contracts and disputes and disagreements that he was owed money by these film companies and these comic book companies, and he never went after them. He didn't charge into their front lines at all. He said, it's okay. I'll live to fight another day." No, fuck those people. You pay the author. You pay the writer. And I love Clive, but he's a goddamn pushover. And it was just a brilliant screed from Ellison, who was a master of that kind of shit. I appreciate that, Sarge. The more the merrier. But we don't have people like that in the literary scene anymore. We just don't. Chuck Palahniuk might be, maybe, kind of still a little bit of that firebrand, but he's lost a lot of his edge. And I'm sorry, most of the stuff on his own personal Substack has grown soft. He spends most of his time on there throwing up essays and thought pieces behind a paywall so that all you can read if you're not a paying subscriber is the first 100 or so words. And then it's, hey, pay me, piggy, in order to get access to my thoughts and opinions and feelings on X, Y, or Z. I'd be more willing to indulge in that, and I might be willing to fork up money to get behind that paywall if before he set up a paywall, if he hadn't gone on all kinds of screeds. Sarge, did you mail the books to my stepdaughter? Fuck. No. I still have them set aside. I just haven't mailed the fucking book. When I get paid this Friday, I have to make that a priority. I need to make that a priority. I am sorry, Sarge. I am not being diligent in my duties to you guys as friends and acquaintances. I have been a poor friend in that regard, and I am sorry, Sarge. But I need to get those books out to her. And let her know that I did include, or I am including, a couple of other books because I want her to have the extras as my way of apologizing for procrastinating on this and delaying getting those out to her as appropriate, for not taking care of my shit. I'm deeply sorry about that. I owe that apology and I owe that admission. I have fucked up. I have procrastinated on doing that. And I am hoping that the couple of extra books can at least somewhat make up for my not being diligent. Ah, fuck. What? I gotta get that done. Okay, so game plan for me then. Tomorrow morning after I drop off Colin at daycare. On the way home, I will head on over to the post office and I will get those sent out to her. I still have your text message with the address, I think. Let me double check just to make sure I've got the information on hand that I need. Because I need to make sure that I don't fuck this up again. Go away. Fucking thing. Sorry about the dead air. Give me a minute. All right. Oh, jeez. Okay, Sarge, I do not have the I never throw rocks at you. Dude, I deeply appreciate that grace that you are extending to me, Sarge. But I don't have the address here in our text message exchange. I don't know why I don't have it, but I don't have it here. Do me a favor and text message me, Sarge. I know you still got my. You may have emailed it, but I get so flooded with emails on both my primary and my backup account that I lose track when I do purges of my email inbox. I lose shit. So do me a favor if you can. Text message me the address that I need to send those books to, so that it does not end up being something that I can dismiss as, well, I couldn't find the email. No, I don't get that many text messages. That way you can hold my feet to the fucking fire if I fuck it up and don't do it. This is another reason, by the way, when I say hold my feet to the fire and taking accountability and responsibility, this is something else that's been happening and showing up on Substack that I absolutely despise. And it's been showing up on BookTube and Book Talk, and I fucking hate it, is this constant droning, self-important, self-pitying crowd of either small press authors or book marketing and distributing agents and specialists saying, well, editors, they need to understand that the author gets the final word and gets the final say, and they shouldn't have their work tampered with by somebody who didn't create the material themselves. Okay, there's a certain degree to which I would agree with that. But if your editor isn't willing or able to breathe fire down your neck and remind you that you have fucked up here or there or here or there in your manuscript, they are not doing you any favors, because they're not helping you grow in the art and technique of the written word. You need to have somebody there who's willing to slap you around verbally and say, hey, fuck wit. You've got a character here who in this page, in this passage, is saying they would never do thing X, Y, or Z. And then 2 chapters later, they're doing thing X, Y, or Z. They are breaking with their character mold as previously established. Is there an explanation? Is there some justification for them breaking with their own moral or ethical code or behavior pattern and now indulging in this thing that they said they would never do? You have to write in that explanation or you're being dumb. Those were the almost exact verbatim words that I got from my editor when I was working with, when I was still working with her through Mr. Robert Priest's Books for a Buck, when I first wrote The Glove of Shadows, which is the Temerarian Tale novel that I just finished chapter by chapter republishing on the above Substack account. When Flint Annenham, I got continuity bitch slapped hard, and I deserved it. Because when Flint Annenham first breaks out of the Fort Flag prison with Akimaru, I had written the scene for him to crawl up the vent from their cell into the kitchens of Fort Flag and change form from his animus form, the rat, into his hybrid man rat form and slit the cook's throats. And my editor sent me a little note saying, hey, He has never acted this brutal or this heartless or this just savage at any prior point in the story. There's been no indication, not a single inclination, that he would be that ferocious with people who probably didn't deserve it. This is out of character. You can't do this, Josh. And I sat back and I tried to justify it in my own head over and over again. I tried to be like, well, given the circumstances, he's been in this order of own for prison cell for like 3 weeks. He's probably really pissy and he's emaciated. He's been losing weight. He's desperate. He's trying to get out. These people have held him imprisoned for almost a month. His ability to hold his temper in check has got to be pushed to the edge. But then I went back over the prior material in the story, and at no point did Flint even vaguely imply through his behavior or his speech and conversations in anything that he did that he'd be willing to cross that line and kill somebody who had no means of defending themselves and was likely not the direct cause of his suffering or harm. He wouldn't do that. She was right. She was absolutely right. And I had no argument to defend that passage in my own book, in my own story. So I took the advice and I changed that sequence so that Flint didn't just slaughter these kitchen staff. I took that advice because she was right. Because she observed the character as previously established in the material, and she determined this just feels wrong. You work with an editor as a storyteller because their job, their duty is to help you, the storyteller, present the best version of your story that you possibly can. Astro points out, ironically, the writer, you, may have had a fight with the editor about something else, and the aggressive character change was the result. While I'm sure that has happened in the past with someone else, that was not the case with this scene in the story, in The Glove of Shadows. Frankly, it was just a fuck up on my part. I wrote in an inconsistent moment with this character, and I didn't have any justification for it. But that's what an editor does. And you've got people on Substack right now, and in the BookTube community, and on Book Talk, apparently. I don't know, because I don't use TikTok. But I've heard people mentioning it on BookTube channels and seen them talking about it on Substack. And there's a lot of people who are saying, hey, hey, fucking with me. No, I get it. Thank you, Astra. I appreciate that. But there's a lot of people saying, well, the author needs to have the final word. While this is contractually true, oftentimes it makes no damn sense to be so prideful, to be so demanding that nobody else be allowed to help you improve your own work, that you're going to sit there and stamp your feet like an arrogant, angry 3-year-old who didn't get a popsicle at the fucking grocery store. Shut it down. Suck it up. Admit to yourself as the storyteller that, here's someone who's been reading since she was like 2 and has been working as an editor in the publishing industry since she was 20. And now the woman is in her 60s. I think I'm going to trust her perspective on this one. Don't worry about it, Sarge. Don't worry about dropping a check or transferring funds for the shipping. I am going to try and use a flat rate shipping option because they're books, and I imagine I can get them all fitted into a singular flat rate shipping box at the post office. I will absorb that. Don't worry about it because you've already bought the books. Okay, you did your part. I need to do my part. That's how this goes. That's an appropriate exchange. I cannot sit here and demand or expect you as the reader. Um, I wasn't aware of that. My point being, Sarge, at this point, really, the onus should be on me to get these books out and just suck it up. Don't worry about it. Okay? I will pay for the shipping because that's my end. I need to keep my promise. And I promised you I would get these out. Astro says she has a vested interest to get you to do your best. Exactly. And KD, she was a brilliant editor. She was so talented in being able to, in knowing when to breathe fire at me and when to approach with a more soft-spoken manner. There is a cheaper option for books, media versus priority. Oh, okay. I can. I'll ask whoever's at the post office. I'll ask them about my options for sending material. Like what's going to be the most affordable option, and still get the material out to your stepdaughter in an efficient time frame. But yeah, KD was the best, man. She knew exactly when to excoriate me and when to draw back and be a little bit more gentle in her prodding and suggestions. She was a consummate professional, and the world is poorer off without her in it anymore. I'm pretty sure that's half the reason that Mr. Priest kind of is slowed down, almost stopped publishing, because he doesn't have KD there anymore. You know, sucks. I would love to continue working with her outside of Books for a Buck. I worked with her a couple times on some of my self-produced material, a couple of my self-published books. KD was willing to work with me on the editing for those too, and she did it gratis. She did it free of charge. She said, "Hey, we got to have the same kind of expectations. I'm going to let you know where you're fucking up." It was fantastic working with her for years, and I don't think I'm ever going to find an editor willing to work with me who self-supplied plain box will give you better options. Oh, okay. I got you. Well, thankfully, I've got a couple of plain brown shipping boxes that I can utilize. And I'm sorry about suddenly turning into a downer. I didn't mean to. I miss working with her. And the whole of the publishing realm, the whole of literature is poorer off without her with us anymore. So that's all I can really say on that. But yeah, the whole trend of people on Substack saying, editors are parasites, or they're just trying to glom onto you to get credit and to ride your coattails. No, they're not. And yes, Dan, she was amazing. Katie was among the best. And she always will have been. But she's no longer, she's retired. She's done. Retired from this industry. She's done. you know, and she's not in the best of health. She's, you know, I don't know when it will happen, but she's probably not going to be with us much longer. And Sarge, once again, stepping into and standing the gap, has gifted a membership to Belgian Dan, medicated, lubricated YouTuber, and now medicated, lubricated Rumbler. Ugh, tongue-tied there for a minute, sorry. Look, to the folks at YouTube, and now I don't have any viewers on the YouTube side, but to the folks running YouTube at Google, at YouTube itself, at Alphabet, whoever, if you're wondering why more and more people are coming to Rumble, it's because, YouTube, you are a bunch of censorious fuckwits who like to try and screw with people's ability to speak their piece at every goddamn turn if they don't fall in line with your ideological nonsense. For years, the folks at YouTube have had the opportunity to straighten up and fly right and give people the opportunity to speak their piece without being thrown into a struggle session digitally. Well, fuck that noise. Frankly, the whole reason that Rumble is climbing the ranks and becoming more and more frequently the destination for people who are small or mid-sized channels to rise up the ranks and become prominent users and providers of content is because they have got a whole hell of a lot more freedom to speak the truth on these matters, whether it be in entertainment or politics or family or just everyday life. People are able to make observations without having the overbearing eye of Sauron of Google / Alphabet / YouTube bearing down on them like an ancient Haitian curse. Well, I mean, unless they've got a Ouija board, Sarge, they can't really tell her much of anything. And thank you, Astro. Not my best impromptu off the cuff speech, but it's heartfelt. Half the reason that I still have a presence on YouTube at all is because there are some folks who have not made the jump over to Rumble yet. Now, true, Rumble has its own problems. But at least when you point out those problems to the folks at Rumble, they don't yeet your channel. They don't suspend your channel. They don't block you from communicating with them. If you tell the folks at YouTube, hey, you're fucking up, they will suspend or delete your channel, or they'll block you on social media so that you can't contact them or their help team in any way, shape, or form. And they'll tell you you're at fault. They'll tell you, well, this is how it is. These are our community guidelines. You violated them, so just deal with it. How about you deal with this? Suck it. A squeegee board instead. I like that. What's left of Susan, one would use a squeegee board instead. I like that. Susan Wiki. Yeah, she was the high priestess of the banhammer. That's what, and that's why Rumble may not be eating YouTube's lunch just yet, but over a long enough timeline, more and more people are going to recognize I can't in good conscience continue to support Google / YouTube. And eventually, I will stop uploading there altogether. I'm streaming to both platforms right now, but there's nobody watching on YouTube right now. All 17 of the viewers currently on this show are all via Rumble, and I appreciate every one of you who are here. I can hear the little one starting to patter around, so I'm going to have to wrap this up here soon. This message of go ahead and you chase your trends. We'll be making stuff for us. This also applies to the folks at YouTube. It also applies to the folks at comic book companies and publishers and distributors. It also applies to folks at video game publishers and distributors and developers. If you continue to chase market trends, expecting that this fraction of a demographic community is going to float your boat perpetually on into infinitum, just remember this. You're not going to capture the entire market. Nobody can. I can't. When it comes to books, I mentioned it before. I write predominantly fantasy and horror. Anyone who doesn't like fantasy or horror, I've already lost them as potential readers because they're not interested in that material. I've got no right to beat them over the head for that. That's just not their tastes. Okay, fine. Yet you've got publishers, you've got advertisers and marketers in publishing, in video games, in television, in film, who demand that, yeah, maybe this material isn't your usual flavor, but buy it anyway. Why? Why would you expect me to buy that anywhere or anyway? If you're making a film, let's say it's a Star Wars film. Well, there are some people who don't like Star Wars. Kind of a shocker. I still enjoy the old material. I'm still a Star Wars fan of the old material, what's now considered legends or non-canon. And look, I'm captured by nostalgia, and I get it. I'm willing to admit that. I am captured by my own fucking childhood with that shit. I don't want to let my toys go, as it were. I don't actually have any of the toys or merchandise. My sons have a couple of stormtroopers and a Darth Vader figure that they do their own weird little skits and plays with. Are they making you work while at work with Josh streaming? Heartless bastards! Those bastards! But there are people who don't like Star Wars. And there are people who don't like the current incarnation of Star Wars to the point where they're done buying anything related to that property. The folks at Disney don't have any right to sit there and demand that they continue patronizing that material. It's not out of the realm of possibility that these folks are never going to come back to being customers of that material. And really, the folks at Disney have nobody to blame but themselves for butchering the material, for ignoring the source lore and mythology, for ignoring the efforts of George Lucas and everybody at LucasArts that poured their blood, sweat, and tears into making movies or shows or books that were and video games that were affiliated with that prior canon material. They got no one to blame but themselves. So why would you demand those people's money? Buy it or you're a bigot. Okay, I guess I'm a bigot. If that's your delineation line, fuck you. Call me what you want. The money's staying in my wallet or in my bank account. That's the simple fact of the matter these days. The folks at Ubisoft are learning that lesson hard. And they're floundering and flailing, and they're going to, in part, get bought out by Tencent because they didn't learn the lesson. And the lesson is this. if you do not give the people who were already on your side a reason to stay on your side, they are going to abandon you, particularly if what you are offering them is not a product or service that they need to get by. The books I write, they're not essential to being able to get through your day-to-day life. Art in general, I would argue, art of some sort is essential to our experience as human beings. Everyone needs the beauty of art in some form or another in order to give them a reason to continue on their day-to-day processes of life. Art is essential. But we as individuals get to choose the form of art that we are going to indulge in and that we are going to take meaning from, that we are going to utilize as that which will inspire us to keep going and keep living a good life. We get to pick what form of art, be it a video game, be it music, be it a book, be it a comic, be it television or film. We individually get to choose. And there's a broad swath of material available for us to choose from. And if you are going to only offer what's trending, what's making big sales, then the people who don't want to support that material, well, we're going to have to just start making it ourselves. We may not be able to compete with you head to head, but there'll be an audience for what we create. And we're okay with that. Oh, I love that. From Belgian Dan. Art should be something that liberates your soul, provokes the imagination, and encourages people to go further. Keith Haring. Beautifully said. Thank you, Dan. That is awesome. I love that. So yeah, go ahead. Continue chasing your trends. Those of us who are the weirdos on the outside, we'll make our own shit. And maybe it'll succeed. Maybe it'll crash and burn. Who knows? But won't there be joy and beauty in trying and seeing if it'll live? Certainly it won't. There's no skin off my nose. I may never, like I said, become a household name. But it's my duty. Dad, husband, storyteller. That's it. Anyhow, gentlemen, and if there are any ladies who haven't said anything, hello to you as well. And for anyone who watches in the after, when this becomes available for watching in the posting, as it were, I'd like to thank you for tuning in and for spending some time here in the Storyteller's Corner. It isn't always pleasant, and I'm not always pleasant, but it's always pleasant to see you here and to have a chit chat with you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. I ask that you take care of yourselves. And as always, keep reading.